Breaking tonight, the federal Liberals are now just one seat away from a majority government after another Conservative MP crosses the aisle.
So let's give a warm welcome to our newest member of the Liberal Party, Michael Ma.
We have analysis about what it means for Mark Carney's Liberals moving forward and the fallout for the Conservative Party. Outrage after Via Rail passengers are stranded on board for more than 12 hours.
I didn't get to sleep at all.
Very surprised that it took this long to figure out a solution.
Frustration about how it was handled and calls for Via to improve its response. And the threat of flooding keeps British Columbia on high alert as an atmospheric river brings a deluge of rain.
I got about 2 hours sleep last night. I've moved my equipment to high ground.
The concern with more rain on the way.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us as we track breaking news tonight. A major political move underway in Ottawa. Another Conservative MP is crossing the floor to the Liberals, dealing another blow to Pierre Poilievre's leadership and pushing Mark Carney's government to within just one seat of a majority. Michael Ma, MP for the Ontario riding of Markham-Unionville, says right now Canada needs, quote, unity and decisive action, and that Carney is offering the right approach. So Parliament's fall sitting may be wrapped, but clearly the drama continues. Let's bring in Kate McKenna in Ottawa. So Kate, very big move and clearly a shock to many.
This is a big Christmas gift for Mark Carney. The MP for Markham-Unionville, Michael Ma, made the surprise announcement hours after the House of Commons rose for the holidays. He's leaving the Conservative caucus and joining the Liberals. In a statement, he hinted at why he left Pierre Poilievre's team. He said, "I entered public service to help people, to focus on solutions, not division. I look forward to working with Prime Minister Carney to make sure that Markham-Unionville and all of Canada can move forward with confidence and build a stronger, safer, and more prosperous future." The Prime Minister introduced Ma at the Liberal caucus party this evening. Take a listen.
So let's give a warm welcome to our newest member of the Liberal Party, Michael Ma, the MP for Union Markham.
Carney told Ma he'd have a better Christmas with the Liberals than he would have, quote, with the cranks.
So, Kate, Ma is, I guess we're at the third member now of Poilievre's team to announce they were leaving in recent weeks. What is happening and how is he reacting?
That's right. MP Chris d'Entremont crossed the floor to the Liberals in November, citing Poilievre's leadership as a reason why. MP Matt Genereux announced soon after that he was planning on leaving elected politics altogether. And now Michael Ma. Poilievre responded saying today he chose to endorse the very policies that he was elected to oppose, the same policies driving up food prices and making life more expensive for all. The people he let down the most are the ones who elected him to fight for an affordable future. He'll have to answer to them. But Poilievre will have to answer to members of his party during a leadership review next month. And now Mark Carney is only one seat away from a majority.
All right. Thank you, Kate. That's Kate McKenna in Ottawa. Let's bring in the host of Power and Politics, David Cochrane, with more analysis. So, David, what's the bottom line here? What does this mean for Mark Carney in particular moving forward?
Well, look, the Prime Minister is one more defection away from getting a majority government without having to have another election. They just finished a sitting of Parliament today that was punctuated by a lot of obstruction and inability and stunts a committee in a lot of directions that limited their ability to get their legislative agenda through. The Prime Minister now has picked up Chris d'Entremont from the Conservatives. He has picked up Michael Ma from the Conservatives. He is now one seat short from the 172 seats you need to have a stable majority with a Speaker of the House. So this puts him right on the cusp of the majority government that will give him a full 4-year term to implement his agenda and deal with the ongoing trade disruption from the White House and Donald Trump.
So what kind of day is this for Pierre Poilievre?
Potentially a fatal one. You got to look at 2025 and where it started. He was up 25 points over Justin Trudeau. He lost the federal election to Mark Carney. He lost his own seat in the Ottawa area, and now he has lost 2 MPs to defection and 1 MP to resignation. Pierre Poilievre faces a leadership review vote at the end of January at the Conservative Convention in Calgary. He may very well win that, maybe for the short term, but if Mark Carney gets that majority and a full 4 years to govern, will the Conservatives give Pierre Poilievre that much time to stick around after the way 2025 has gone nothing but downhill for the Conservative leader?
All right, we will see. That's David Cochrane. Thank you.
Thank you.
According to the latest data from StatsCan, Canada's trade deficit, the fallout from Washington's tariffs, has disappeared. After Donald Trump launched a trade war, Canada's exports tumbled. But the latest figures from September show a bit of a recovery. Imports, meanwhile, have steadily declined, erasing the tariff-driven trade deficit Canada's had since February. It's now a small surplus, driving the shift, growing exports of precious metals, especially gold, of crude oil, and of aircraft, specifically private jets. Well, there's some frustration tonight for Via Rail passengers who found themselves stuck overnight after a mechanical issue stranded their trains. Everyone has made it to their destinations now, but as Michelle Song explains, it's not the first time this has happened, and there are calls for Via to do better.
Yeah, of course.
After hours stranded on a broken-down Via Rail train, this is the moment Isabel Leduc and her fellow passengers were finally able to hop off. But it wasn't the end of their ordeal.
We had no running water or heat. We were at least an hour with glow sticks.
Train number 669 was heading from Montreal to Toronto when it experienced a mechanical failure near Brockville, Ontario.
At first we were going to wait, and there was all kinds of miscommunication, not miscommunication, but there was going to be a train to come to push us. And then that didn't work.
2 other trains, numbers 48 and 54, traveling from Toronto to Ottawa, were also disrupted. They stopped in Brockville and sheltered the initial stranded group for several more hours. In all, passengers stuck for more than 12 hours waiting for a way out.
Unfortunately, this night, there were no buses available through the whole region.
One train eventually headed to Toronto in the morning, another to Ottawa. Passengers arrived exhausted.
I didn't get to sleep at all.
Very surprised that it took this long to figure out a solution.
Many now questioning the company's response to the incident.
We'll do everything we need to do to review the sequence of events and see where we can improve.
And the response is critical, and we want Via Rail to continue to improve on that.
There have been similar issues in the past. Just last year, another Via train was also stuck in Brockville for several hours because of mechanical issues. And a train headed for Quebec City from Montreal broke down for 10 hours.
Having a more robust network, having the ability to have a bit more flexibility would certainly make the responses a lot more flexible and a lot quicker.
Via Rail says it will refund all affected passengers and provide a travel credit. Michelle Song, CBC News, Toronto.
The onslaught of rain in British Columbia has paused tonight, but floodwaters are still rising, with parts of the interior under flood warnings and parts of the Abbotsford area under evacuation order. That's where Yasmin Renea met some who are not leaving.
The floodwaters came gushing in after days of intense downpour.
Got about 2 hours sleep last night. We've been watching it.
Chicken farmer Dave Martins is nervous. He lost thousands of birds during catastrophic floods 4 years ago.
I've moved my equipment, as you can see over here. I've moved my equipment to high ground.
East of Vancouver, people in Chilliwack and Abbotsford in the fertile Fraser Valley have faced multiple flood warnings and watches this week. The threat is flowing from the south, with Washington state rivers like the Nooksack topping their banks and water surging into Canada.
While some areas are improving in through the valley, the Sumas particularly, we do expect to see the potential for ongoing challenging conditions as we go through the day today.
New evacuation orders were issued Thursday for the Abbotsford area. This couple discovered their house was underwater through door cam footage.
I don't know what is going to happen in the next few days. So
see a lot more rain coming.
So
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so it's only going to get worse.
But others are choosing to stay put, remembering how during the 2021 flood they were kept away from their homes for days.
But I'm not going to go until I can see it's going to start coming in my house.
South of the border, up to 100,000 people face potential evacuations.
We understand that many folks have experienced significant floods in the past and that they may feel they can ride it out. The flooding levels we're looking at are potentially historic in nature.
In BC, officials say they're in better shape to deal with the floods since 2021 thanks to infrastructure upgrades, but say more work needs to be done south of the border.
That kind of work is definitely going to take time, and in the meantime, we need to be more prepared on this side.
For now, residents living through yet another flooding event are left to wait, wary of the damage that will only be revealed once the waters recede.
And Yasmin, officials are really warning people there are going to be some tough days ahead.
Yes, that's right. And as you can probably hear, some residents are pumping out flood water from their homes. And the province says it's anticipating continued flow from the Nooksack River and rising water levels. And another atmospheric river is expected to cover the region Sunday and Monday. Adrian?
All right, so much work ahead. That's Yasmin Renea in Abbotsford tonight. There's another developing story we're tracking tonight. The Department of National Defense has revealed that a non-commissioned officer has been accused of passing classified information to a foreign entity. Matthew Robar with the Canadian Armed Forces Intelligence Command faces 8 charges, including communicating, quote, special operational information. The foreign entity involved was not named. Well, police in Ontario say they have cracked 3 cold cases, murders of women that happened in the 1980s and the 90s. And as Lisa Shing explains, they're naming one man now considered a serial killer as their suspect.
Thank you.
Answers at long last for 3 families tied to 3 separate cold case murders.
These women were never forgotten, and it is because of the commitment of so many that we are able to give their loved ones at least one crucial answer today.
Toronto and Ontario police now say this man, Kenneth Smith, was a serial killer operating over the last 2 decades. He died in 2019 in Windsor, Ontario, at the age of 72.
His death means he will never be held to account in a court of law.
Police say in 1982, Smith killed Christine Prince, a Welsh woman working as a nanny in Toronto, after she had a night out with friends. A year later, Claire Sampson was found dead north of the city, last seen getting into a car with an older man. The 3rd known victim, nursing assistant Gracelyn Greenidge, was beaten to death in her Toronto apartment in 1997.
I've known her for 20 years. She was more like a sister to me.
There were rewards and public pleas like this one, but for decades, the murders went unsolved. Smith was known to police here in Toronto. He had a history of sexual assault and was incarcerated multiple times, but he wasn't connected to these cases until crime scene DNA was untangled and linked to his close relatives.
That's one of the biggest problems with DNA right now, is having a mixture of the offender DNA with the victim's DNA.
This case, another example of police using new techniques to solve complicated old cases.
So this is a process that takes time. This is not as simple as an offender who cuts themselves on a window.
Just the fact they know the police are still looking into things like this gives so many families hope.
With these 3 murders now solved, police say they are now investigating whether there are other victims linked to Smith. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
The CEO of one of Canada's national museums has left her job after a new report uncovered allegations of serious workplace mistreatment and a decade of emotional harm to staff. Ashley Burke now with the findings and the calls for accountability.
Life comes in all different directions.
Marie Chapman, this National Museum CEO, is now stepping away from the job after a report claimed she mistreated staff, including calling the museum's senior leadership team sluts.
She did this on multiple occasions and even in front of members of the public.
In a video statement, the government's integrity commissioner alleges her investigation found the top executive of the Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21 committed serious code of conduct breaches.
The CEO engaged in a pattern of inappropriate behavior, causing emotional harm to multiple employees over an extended period of time.
That harm, she alleges, includes offensive language, yelling, and instilling fear in staff to the point where some people were so deeply impacted, they reported contemplating self-harm.
This was not a one-time lapse in judgment, but a repeated problem that persisted over a decade.
The Conservative government first appointed Chapman in 2011, then the Liberals kept her in the job. Her salary range up to about $220,000.
I found out about this report, which is alarming, 2 days ago.
The minister responsible for museums says Chapman's term expired in October, but the museum's board decided to keep her on until January.
Anything in that report is indeed accurate. It certainly grounds for the board to take action and to make sure that the CEO is disqualified.
Hours later, the museum's board revealed to staff Chapman decided to retire. And effective today, she has stepped away from her role. Chapman told the commissioner she disagrees with the report's findings. She admits she called the senior leadership team sluts, but said that she never threatened anyone's employment or fostered a climate of fear. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Quebec has reached a tentative agreement with the union representing its family doctors.
We're still open to discuss with the federations. That's what we're saying. We've deposited an offer. It's a final offer, but we still got time to discuss it.
The two sides had been at odds over something called Bill 2. That's legislation that ties doctors' pay to performance targets. The change was set to take effect in January, but there was backlash from doctors. Hundreds applied for a license in Ontario. The union will present the offer to its members on Friday. There will be a vote in the coming days. No details have been released publicly. Well, just a day after the United States seized an oil tanker off of Venezuela's coast, there are new sanctions tonight and more questions about what all this means for escalating tensions between the two countries. Katie Nicholson has the details from Washington, including new information about how the U.S. helped smuggle Venezuela's opposition leader out of the country to accept the Nobel Peace Prize.
A hero's welcome. After all, the odds were stacked against Maria Corina Machado making it to her Nobel Prize celebrations in Oslo. Wow. The Venezuelan opposition leader, forced into hiding more than a year ago, reportedly slipped past military checkpoints in disguise, crossing choppy waters to Curacao with the help of a small fishing boat and a significant ally.
We did get support from the U.S. government.
Machado had careful praise for its president.
President Trump's actions have been decisive to reach the point where we are right now, in which the regime is weaker than ever.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's regime was dealt another blow Wednesday. An elite U.S. team seized a sanctioned tanker off its coast.
De piratería criminal.
Maduro called it criminal piracy. Under siege, he turned to an old friend, Vladimir Putin. The Russian president reaffirmed his support for Maduro and Venezuela's sovereignty, the two countries tied together by oil and historically anti-U.S. sentiment. The Trump administration has Maduro in a tightening vise, launching more than 20 strikes on alleged drug boats and conducting military maneuvers in the region. Trump says Maduro's days are numbered. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers demand to know Trump's plan.
We are edging toward war with Venezuela. The American people have a right to know what's going on.
Caroline Leavitt hinted at more tanker seizures.
And we're not going to stand by and watch sanctioned vessels sail the seas with black market oil, the proceeds of which will fuel narco-terrorism.
To that end, the U.S. just added 6 more crude oil tankers to its sanctions list, as well as 3 of Maduro's nephews. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
A ferocious storm has rolled across the Mediterranean, battering one place ill-equipped right now for any disaster, Gaza. A warning that there are disturbing images ahead as Rafi Boudjikanian tracks the storm's toll on people already desperate for shelter.
Entire neighborhoods of tents destroyed, just the start of Byron's impact on these refugee camps as the storm tears across the Mediterranean. This social media video showing the moment a building collapsed, one of 3 such incidents local media reported. The essential reason is bombing, this resident told a freelance videographer working for CBC News, with Byron finishing the job. He says he and others got as many women and children out as possible. But this mother says the storm has already claimed 1 victim. There was nothing wrong with my daughter, she said. I fed her at night. I fed her, but I don't know. Suddenly I woke up, I found her cold and dead. Hypothermia is one of many concerns aid groups now share for others in the camps. For many seeking adequate shelter, there is little hope. The UN says the war had already left about 80% of Gaza's buildings damaged or destroyed. While the storm continues to rage, Byron's full impact hasn't been measured. But UNICEF says some of it is already plain to see.
All the children I met are sick. The mattresses are completely damped. The children have wet clothes on them. It's not possible for them to change clothes because actually most of them have been displaced. And when you're displaced, you very often run with only what you have on your back.
Key materials to repair some of this damage, like tent poles and drain pipes, are subject to control at Gaza's checkpoints. Real reconstruction cannot begin until Israel and Hamas complete the 2nd phase of the peace process. And there is disagreement on how to get there, with Hamas rejecting total disarmament. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Jerusalem.
We have more on our breaking news tonight. A Conservative MP crossing the floor and joining the Liberals.
Some may have just joined our party. Like literally, just joined our party.
What this could mean for the future of the Conservatives. Plus, Ottawa designates 4 new terrorist entities.
They're probably the most persistent and advanced threat against youth online today.
The added powers given to police. And a plane crash with a happy ending.
It was definitely a miracle on I-95.
We're back in 2. Canada has named 4 new terrorist entities, including the extremist network 764. As Catherine Tunney shows us, the group targets young people online, and a warning their influence has caused serious and disturbing outcomes.
They've been described as sadistic and heinous, and as of this week in Canada, terrorists.
They're probably the most persistent and advanced threat against youth online today.
He's talking about the shadowy online network known as 764. Members use social media and gaming platforms to lure, groom, and extort victims, often young girls, to commit disturbing acts, goading them into branding themselves, maiming animals, and even suicide, for clout and to cause chaos. This week, Canada became the first country to officially list the 764 as a terrorist entity under the Criminal Code.
It does indicate that there is a sense of alertness that Canadian law enforcement have and concerns that they have.
Ottawa also listed the Maniac Murder Cult, or MKY, a group associated with 764, and the Terrogram Collective, known for spreading white supremacy ideology. Earlier this year, CBC's The Fifth Estate spoke to this Red Deer, Alberta mom, whose daughter was caught up in the chilling web of 764 back in 2021, urged to hurt herself and kill her mother before ultimately getting help.
If then they were convincing kids to do mass shooting, my kid would have done that. And that is terrifying to think.
The move out of Ottawa this week gives police additional powers. They can now freeze or seize property, and helping these groups carries legal consequences. The designation is being championed by groups who closely monitor these networks.
I hope that it would be a wake-up moment for some of them, seeing that there are such serious consequences and that nobody is truly anonymous online.
A case involving a Halifax teen accused of being involved with 764 was before the court on Thursday. The Crown says it's assessing whether this terrorism designation will impact charges going forward. Catherine Tunney, CBC News, Ottawa.
If you're in need of support, there is a 3-digit suicide crisis helpline. You can call or text 988. Help is available there 24 hours a day. Coming up, we return to our breaking news. The Liberals picking up a seat after a Conservative MP suddenly crossed the floor.
Let's give a warm welcome to our newest member of the Liberal Party.
What this means for the makeup of the House. Returning to our top story tonight, another Conservative MP has crossed the floor to the Liberals, putting the government just one seat shy of a majority. This marks a major victory for Prime Minister Mark Carney, one he celebrated at the Liberal Christmas party.
So let's give a warm welcome to our newest member of the Liberal Party, Michael Ma.
And that is first-time MP Michael Ma. He represents Markham Unionville. Ma is the second Conservative to cross the floor in recent weeks. He follows Nova Scotia MP Chris D'Entremont. Catherine Cullen joins us now from Ottawa. So, Catherine, obviously a huge win for the Liberals, also shocking for the Conservatives. I know you've been working the phones tonight. How is this news going over with the Conservatives?
Adrian, a lot of jaws on the floor. MPs were partying, dancing with Michael Ma just last night. He voted with the Conservatives literally hours before this happened. Pierre Poilievre was out giving a pretty chipper news conference with the media, no indication of any problems. Several Conservative MPs have told me they had not heard Ma's name come up in rumor. There was a sense amongst Conservatives I've talked to that they had stopped the bleeding after Chris D'Entremont crossed the floor and Matt Genereux resigned. This unquestionably shakes things up, particularly because it leaves Mark Carney so close, just one MP away from a majority.
In all of this, Pierre Poilievre's leadership has to be on a lot of minds tonight.
Yeah, and it's obviously not good. I think the question is how serious the damage is. The big pivotal moment for Poilievre is likely to be this leadership vote at party convention in January in Calgary. Conservatives have been telling me for weeks Poilievre will have no problem there. The delegates who were chosen to vote are very loyal to him. That likely remains very true tonight. But again, if Carney can bring over one more MP and get a majority, all bets may be off. It could throw things into chaos. Poilievre would become not just the leader who lost an election he seemed so clearly destined to win when Justin Trudeau was in power, but perhaps the one who handed a majority over to Mark Carney. You can bet the Conservatives are doing everything in their power to make sure no one else in caucus is going anywhere tonight.
And the Liberals, I mean, clearly they're celebrating tonight. It's hard to say if they sense momentum here.
Mark Carney sure looked pleased as he introduced his new MP this evening. One of the criticisms of him has been that he doesn't have a lot of political background. He's new to politics. Well, this is pretty remarkable politics to have these two floor crossings so soon after an election. Part of the reason this is possible is, of course, because Carney's politics are further to the right than Justin Trudeau. But the big question is, does he have one more MP up his sleeve? Adrian, we're all going to be watching to see.
Hey, Catherine Cullen, thanks very much for this.
Thank you.
And earlier today, Rosie was here with At Issue, where they talked about what this government has been able to achieve since the spring election.
At issue tonight, the legislative agenda. Mark Carney's Liberals have big ambitions, but have not managed to get as many bills passed as they would like so far.
I'm pleased that we have the Building Canada Act through and that we're making progress.
Other parties say the Liberals should be willing to work together.
I look to the Carney government in 2026 to demonstrate that they understand they're in a minority parliament and that they have to work across party lines.
As the Conservatives try to pressure the Liberal caucus over their Alberta Memorandum of Understanding.
What's clear is that Mark Carney has no intention of actually getting a pipeline bill.
Why did your leader vote virtually on his own motion, sir?
So what's been made of what happened inside the House of Commons this sitting? How does it compare with the sort of normal logjam that we see? I'm Rosemary Barton here to break it all down in person tonight. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj. Disclosure, we recorded some other really good panels that you can watch in the next couple of weeks over the holidays, but we'll wrap up this sitting. I guess I wanted to examine whether whether the Prime Minister, whether the government, Althea, understands that it's a minority government, and whether we see any signs that they are trying to find collaboration either at committees or in the House or in any way to get their legislation through.
I don't know that the government believes in collaboration, and maybe I'm too generous by saying government, the Prime Minister. Steve McKinnon may get along well with Andrew Scheer, this is the Liberal government's House leader, but he does not get along with the Bloc Québécois, which is the only other dance partner in committees. So that, to me, was always a questionable appointment. You know, when Justin Trudeau resigned in January, he talked about Parliament being paralyzed.
And it was, yeah.
That fall, the Liberals had passed 12 bills. Mark Carney has passed this fall, as we're recording this, one bill.
Yeah.
One bill. That Building Canada Act that he was talking about in the clip, that was passed in June. So, you know, they have a really hard time passing their bills, some of which, frankly, their own members think is a good thing because they don't like the bills. Yeah. But they have a problem. They have a problem making allies and realizing that if they want to get stuff done through Parliament, they need to work with other parties.
Okay, and we should say, as we record this, there may be a deal in the offing, so by the time this goes to air, they may get a couple other things through, but it speaks to a trend line, I think. And I guess the other question is, does it matter, given that the Prime Minister wants to be making deals with on other fronts that are not necessarily legislative?
Yeah, well, it does matter if you tell people that you're doing A, B, C, and then you don't see any of those things through. And that is basically where things are at. I think Althea is totally right that there's been a sense. And remember, when Mark Carney arrived, Yves-François Blanchet had good things to say. After the election, he said, I'm willing to cooperate for a year. That's all been thrown out because consultation doesn't happen. When it does happen with ministers and one of the opposition parties, suddenly the PMO wakes up and says, well, we don't want to do this and that. And I think Mark Carney is now realizing that, yes, you can pass your budget because of the fear of an election, but most votes are not confidence votes. Right. And the Bloc and the Conservatives can agree together to rewrite entire pieces of legislation.
Which they have.
Which they have. And then you have to undo it on the floor of the House of Commons if it's not being obstructed. So does it matter? Well, we've just had a 600-plus page bill on the budget. And if you want those measures in the budget to become law and to ever happen, you will need to find a way to negotiate with the opposition parties better or find an excuse to have an election and hope you win a majority. But if you look at this in the last 2 years of Justin Trudeau's minority government, our parties, all of them, are at this point not living up to delivering minority rule in a constructive fashion.
For sure, but this is even harder than what Justin Trudeau had because, as Althea points out, they don't have the NDP. So this is an even more complicated situation.
Why would you assume that they have to have the NDP? That was never the case federally until the last 2 years of Trudeau.
Anyway, go ahead.
Well, Stephen Harper was not famously collaborative, and he governed in minority for 5 years. The difference now is the committee thing that was mentioned. The difference is the NDP is in such a weak condition relative to then. So we're in this peculiar position where neither can the government get legislation through, but neither can it be defeated. That nobody wants an election right now. We saw that in the budget bill. So we're in this kind of weird limbo where they can continue to govern, but they're not getting a lot of legislation through. That may not overly concern them if they're thinking about an election in the spring.
Maybe. Okay, we're going to leave this part there. When we come back, we'll talk about Canada's ambassadors to the U.S., Kirsten Hillman, leaving and who might replace her.
The ambassador has done a fantastic job for Canada for 6 years.
So what does the loss mean for the Canada-U.S. file? Who could replace Kirsten Hillman in Washington? That's next. At issue, Canada's ambassador to the United States. After years in the position, Kirsten Hillman will be leaving Washington next year as renegotiations for CUSMA approach.
We are now heading into a process that will take quite a long time, and it seemed like the most effective time to leave.
The U.S. is signaling an interest in pursuing bilateral deals.
So
So it makes sense to talk about things separately with Canada and Mexico.
But Hillman believes there is flexibility.
I think it's more a question of wanting to make sure that they get a renewal with Canada on issues that are important to them with Canada, a renewal with Mexico on issues that are important with Mexico. Some will be trilateral, some will be bilateral.
So what does the loss of Kirsten Hillman mean for Canada's presence in Washington and the deal, the future of those renegotiations or negotiation? Let's bring everyone back. Chantal, Andrew, Althea. Andrew, I'll start with you. I mean, obviously the loss of someone who has that kind of experience and is that deeply connected in Washington at this moment is maybe not great. I understand what Ambassador Hillman is saying, that it's better to get out before the CUSMA renegotiations start. On the other hand, having to start from scratch with someone new could be problematic.
I mean, the negotiations, though, are going to be much more in the hands of Dominic LeBlanc and people like that.
Sure, and the Prime Minister even.
And I think the difficulty is it's so hard to read Washington now. The people around Trump, for example, many of them have completely different agendas. Trump himself seems oftentimes to have checked out. The Congress is not like any Congress we've ever seen before, with the kinds of independent power centers that you used to be able to have. They've been so under the thumb of Trump. That may be changing as Trump himself declines. So all of that feeds into what kind of ambassador do you want? What kind of connections do you need and are you trying to make? I don't have a good answer to that, but it just seems to me that there may be a defense for non-traditional types of ambassadorial choices given this unprecedented situation.
I mean, you could argue that Ambassador Hillman was a non-traditional choice because she was a foreign service.
Public servant.
Yeah, she was a public servant who was elevated to this extraordinary role because of all the things that she had done in the past.
But if part of your agenda is to do an end run around the Congress and to appeal to the business community, for example, do you want somebody who can appeal to business groups?
Right. Althea?
I don't think you can do an end run around Congress. I think what has been really striking is all the praise that Ambassador Hillman has gotten in the past few days in Canada from all sides of the political spectrum, as well as in the United States. And I hope that, with all the early retirements that the government is offering public servant, that we have ensured that, she is kind of like a mentor figure for so many other people in the public service to think that they can aspire to such positions and have that experience. It looks like the potential ambassador is going to be Mark Wiseman, or at least someone that will be a political appointee. For political reasons, Mr. Wiseman's name has been bandied about for several months now because of his connections to Trump and people around Donald Trump.
And the business world, to Andrew's point.
Exactly. Yeah. But, the people drafting the CUSMA 3.0, 2.0, NAFTA 3.0, are going to be people in the weeds. So you still want to have a depth of experience, and I believe that regardless of who is appointed, I think it's mostly about a public figure, kind of like the U.S. ambassador we have here.
Sure.
I mean, does anybody really think that?
No, I don't think he's negotiating it, but I do think that Ambassador Hillman was pretty deeply involved because she was the chief negotiator
of her TPPs.
Chantal.
So it's always been a political appointment.
That's right.
The difference now with the name that is being leaked of Mr. Wiseman is he's neither a politician, no political experience, and also no diplomatic experience, and that does stand out versus everyone that has come before. But I am curious about the notion that you allow a name to float like that long enough to build resistance. For instance, I'll give you an example.
Well, yes.
Mr. Wiseman's name comes to the surface. No one confirms, but no one denies. And the first thing that happens is his views on supply management, to which he is totally entitled, come out, except that how do you think you're going to build trust in this team if you know that the lead person in Washington would like to negotiate away supply management? And immediately the Conservatives and the Bloc jumped on that, but not just them. There are people. So I'm curious, are we having this name floated to see if it will pass?
Yes.
And if so, that's terrible, because if you're going to appoint someone like that to a top job, you do not send his name as a trial balloon to see if it endures.
I don't think it's a trial balloon from the things I'm hearing, but I do not understand why they wouldn't have checked some of the more political things that he has said, if this is an actual candidate.
And replied to some of the social media stuff that was false.
Or is it, I don't know what the term would be, the opposite of a trial balloon, but leaked deliberately to try and scupper his, a lead balloon perhaps, to try and scupper his chances. That's, always
The PMO is not always unanimous.
No.
Or unanimously behind the Prime Minister.
And the fact that we are again this week hearing about, last week it was about no deal, this week it's about separate deals. Is that something that, as they are making the choice for who replaces Ambassador Hillman, something that they need to think about? Because now you're not talking about the same kind of deal as you had before.
No, you're just talking about the same person and the same administration that sends the mixed contrary signals. So I don't think...
That puts a premium on having really good relations with Mexico.
Yes.
Both either to present a united front in a trilateral negotiation, or if they do go down this path of signing separate deals, then we need another deal with Mexico to avoid becoming hubs and spokes.
And that's why Dominic LeBlanc was probably in Mexico City a week or so ago. Yeah, Althea?
We have long known that this was a risk, and we have also known what we needed to do to avoid that risk. So I'm assuming that the government is still hoping that we have a tri-party agreement. On Chantal's point about the name leaking, I agree, it's a little odd. But also the Prime Minister has shown us that he can change his mind. So
yes, and the examples keep piling up.
So he often says things to people and doesn't deliver. Seems to be a pattern that we were noticing, whether that's diplomatic appointments or staffing appointments. So I think there's a reason why nobody's going out on a limb and saying this is a new ambassador with certainty.
One point of continuity with Justin Trudeau.
Okay, very quickly, I don't have much time. If we don't get some sort of resolution to this, whether it be sectoral tariffs or a deal, what does that mean for the Prime Minister and for the government, given how much of his election was built on this?
I happen to think that most Canadians, not all, I'm not trying to say all, but have factored in along over the months the fact that one, maybe it's better not to have a deal. Two, maybe a deal is not worth having, considering how the administration we deal with changes its mind on a dime. So I'm not so sure. I know the opposition parties believe there's a big price to pay for that. I've seen no evidence of that over the past 7-8 months.
So and is that because the situation has changed so dramatically, and because we haven't got anywhere?
It's because we're dealing with a madman in the White House. I think the public understands that if they couldn't get a deal with Joe Biden, I think people would be properly critical. But if you can't get a deal with Donald Trump, it will depend upon, do you look like you were relatively competent? Were you doing the best anybody could imagine somebody doing? Does somebody else have a better plan or a better negotiator that they can put out? The public, I think, are pretty skeptical. It's like on healthcare. Everybody tries to win elections in healthcare, and people look at them and go, it's a really big mess. I don't think you've got some silver bullet solution.
I mean, it's almost like what was sort of the peak moment of Donald Trump and the threats. Everyone that has sort of, it's not that it's not real, it's that it's worn off a bit, and so maybe we're willing to.
But people still think he's the best choice for a prime minister.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was the basis of the ballot box question, was which of the two, you can only get one of those two.
Yeah.
I don't think people think that Pierre Poilievre, polls suggest people don't think that Pierre Poilievre could do better. I do think, though, that the real impact will be once people start losing their jobs and the impacts of the tariffs are felt, and it lingers and it's deep, and people who voted for Mark Carney are disappointed in Mark Carney because they are losing their jobs and communities are suffering. And that's what's going to hurt the government.
That's starting. Okay. Thank you all. Good to see you all in person. That's at issue on the National. We're going to keep this conversation going, talk about a new set of powers raising concerns with at least 2 people at this table. Catch that on YouTube or the At Issue podcast. Now back to Adrian in Toronto.
Hey, thanks, Rosie. Coming up, a small plane makes a crash landing on a Florida highway.
She didn't know a plane hit her. She thought a semi-truck hit her.
The witnesses who jumped into action next in our moment. This is an emergency crash landing caught on tape. The small plane slamming into a moving car on a Melbourne, Florida highway. So a couple witnessed the landing, then rushed to help the pilots and the driver, who were miraculously unharmed. Now, that very unlikely sequence of events makes our moment.
everywhere.
There's no airport here. Why is that coming down?
We seen a airplane that was flying much too low. It came down and hit a car.
Like falling out the sky. I didn't believe it.
My daughter's a nurse. I'm RN too. I said, let's go see what we can do to help. I was expecting to see something horrible. To our amazement, the young lady was a little dazed, but she was okay.
Do you know how much I love my car?
Don't worry about the car, worry about your life. She didn't know a plane hit her. She thought a semi-truck hit her.
I was the first one to walk over, check the pilots out. There was really no physical injuries on the outside.
You see things on TV, but you never think that you would actually see it.
And be a part of it. It was definitely a miracle on I-95.
No kidding. I mean, let's back up. It's rush hour. The highway is packed. The two pilots, both 27 years old, they're just fine. The driver is just fine. All that debris on the road, everyone was fine. That is a good day. From all of us at the National, thank you for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.